Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into an idiom.
Ooh, fun.
That's sure to sweeten up your English vocabulary.
Okay.
A piece of cake.
I like it already.
This one's especially for all of you English learners out there.
You're right.
Looking to add a little bit of flavor to your conversation.
Yeah.
And hey, did you know that idioms exist in other languages?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But often use totally different images.
Yeah, they do.
We'll explore that a little later.
Okay.
But first, let's get to the heart of a piece of cake.
Sounds good.
So can you break this down for us?
Yeah.
What does a piece of cake actually mean?
It means something is super easy to do. Like it takes almost no effort at all.
Right.
Think about acing a test that everyone else found really tough.
Right.
You could say, that test was a piece of cake.
I get it.
Yeah.
Like when you totally nailed that presentation you were nervous about.
Exactly.
Or whipped up a delicious dinner without even breaking a sweat. Yeah. Our listeners can probably relate to that feeling, right?
Oh, for sure.
But where did this idiom come from?
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm always curious about the history behind these quirky expressions.
So a piece of cake actually takes us back to the 1930s in America.
Okay.
There were these dance competitions called cakewalks, where the winners would receive, you guessed it, cakes.
Cakes.
So you can see how the idea of winning something everyone wants, something desirable,
Right.
got tied to the feeling of achieving something easily.
Wow, that is fascinating.
Yeah.
It makes the meaning even more memorable.
Sure.
When you know the story behind it.
I agree.
And speaking of memorable,
Yeah,
are there other idioms that mean the same thing as a piece of cake?
absolutely.
Okay.
There are a bunch of ways to say something is easy peasy. For example,
Yeah.
you could say as easy as pie, which, let's be honest, is pretty easy.
Right.
If you're not making the crust from scratch.
Yeah.
Or you could say something is a walk in the park,
Right.
which definitely evokes a sense of calmness and effortlessness.
I love those.
Yeah.
They paint such a vivid picture in your mind.
Yeah,
A walk in the park really captures that feeling of relaxation.
for sure.
Okay, so we've got as easy as pie
Yep.
and a walk in the park. What are some others?
Another one is no sweat,
Okay.
which kind of implies that you didn't even have to try hard. So if you're helping a friend move
Yeah.
and they ask if you mind carrying that heavy box,
Right.
you could say, no sweat,
Yeah.
to let them know you're happy to help and it's no big deal.
No sweat. I love that one.
It's a good one.
It's so casual and friendly,
Yeah.
but let's be real life isn't always a cakewalk.
No, definitely not.
What about those situations that are the complete opposite? Those
yeah.
things that are actually really tough to do.
Right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
And English has some equally colorful idioms for those situations too. We can think of them as the opposite side of the easy coin.
Okay.
For example, you might say something is a tough nut to crack.
A tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Like trying to solve a really complicated math problem
Exactly.
or figuring out how to assemble that piece of furniture
Right.
with the instructions that make absolutely no sense.
I've been there.
Yeah.
It happens to the best of us.
Okay. So a tough nut to crack. What else?
And it really emphasizes that feeling of struggling to make progress, like
Yeah.
you're hitting your head against a wall.
Right.
Or you might say something is like pulling teeth,
Okay.
which, let's be honest, no one enjoys.
Oh, like pulling teeth is so relatable.
Isn't it?
Have you ever had to convince a friend to do something
Oh, yeah.
they really didn't want to do?
All the time.
It can feel exactly like that.
You really can.
Pulling teeth is definitely not easy or pleasant.
Nope.
And that's why this idiom works so well. It perfectly captures that sense of frustration and resistance.
Exactly.
Okay, so like pulling teeth is definitely one we've all experienced at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any other idioms for those tough situations?
Another great one is an uphill battle,
Okay.
which really paints a picture of struggle and effort. You know, like when you're learning a new language
Right.
and you hit that plateau where it feels like you're not making any progress,
Yeah,
it can feel like you're constantly climbing uphill.
that's a great point.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of something you mentioned earlier
Okay.
about idioms in other languages.
Right.
You said they often use different imagery, even if the meaning is similar.
Exactly.
Okay.
And exploring those differences can be a fascinating way
Yeah.
to understand different cultures and
Yeah.
how they see the world.
So instead of saying a piece of cake in another language,
Right.
they might use a completely different food
Yep.
or object to get that idea of ease across.
Precisely. For instance, in German, you wouldn't say a piece of cake.
Yeah.
but rather das ist ein Kinderspiel,
Okay.
which literally translates to that's child's play.
Child's play.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a good one,
It's so playful.
right?
And it kind of implies that something is so easy, even a kid could do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it reflects a slightly different cultural perspective,
Uh-huh.
perhaps emphasizing the simplicity and straightforwardness of the task.
Okay.
So even though the core meaning is the same,
Right.
something is effortless.
Yeah.
The image used to express it can vary quite a bit.
That's so cool.
It is.
It makes me want to dive into idioms in other languages even more.
Yeah.
It's like getting a glimpse into different ways of thinking.
I agree.
Speaking of which, I'm curious, why do you think it's important
Okay.
for English learners to learn and use idioms like a piece of cake?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think it goes beyond just sounding more fluent or native-like. Using idioms correctly shows that you're not just learning vocabulary and grammar,
Uh-huh.
but that you're actually grasping the culture and nuances of the language.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It demonstrates a deeper level of understanding and engagement with the language.
For sure.
It's like you're saying, hey, I get it. I'm in on the joke. I'm part of the club.
Exactly.
And using idioms can make your conversations more interesting, more colorful, and more engaging.
Absolutely.
After all, who wants to talk in a dry, literal way all the time?
No one.
Right.
Exactly.
It's like adding spice to your language, making it more vibrant and memorable.
I like that.
So as you continue on your English learning journey,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to embrace those quirky idioms.
I agree.
They might seem a bit strange at first,
Yeah.
but once you start using them, you realize they're actually, well, a piece of cake.
They certainly are.
And the best part is you don't have to learn them all at once.
Oh, definitely not.
Start with a few that resonate with you, that you find interesting or useful,
Right.
and gradually build up your collection.
That's great advice.
It's all about taking small steps and celebrating those victories along the way.
I agree.
Speaking of victories,
Yeah.
I have a question for our listeners today.
Okay. I'm all ears.
What's something in English that used to be an uphill battle for you, but now feels like a piece of cake?
Ooh, I love that question.
It's a great way to reflect on how far you've come in your language learning journey.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe it was mastering a tricky grammar rule,
Right.
or finally feeling confident enough to speak English in public.
Absolutely.
Or maybe it was something as simple as understanding a joke told in English.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Those aha moments are so rewarding.
They are.
And they really highlight the progress you've made.
For sure.
And we want to hear about your successes.
Yes.
Share your piece of cake moments with us on social media.
That's right.
Let's celebrate those wins together.
Absolutely.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
And that wraps up our deep dive into a piece of cake. Remember, language learning is a journey,
Yeah.
not a destination.
Exactly.
It's about embracing the challenges
For sure.
and enjoying the process.
Yeah.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe one day,
Right.
those things that feel like an uphill battle now will become as easy as a piece of cake.
You got it.
Well said.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us
Of course.
on this deep dive into the world of idioms.
It was a pleasure.
Until next time,
See you later.
happy language learning, everyone.